Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. So this is 5 of the fastest money making methods currently in Gran Turismo 7. We're on update 1.19, so sadly the 600 Tomahawk is gone and no more. However, there is some crazily glitched PP cars in this, and you may be surprised. I wanted to kind of make it fair to the 3 main events, so there will be a showing from Le Mans, Sardinia and Tokyo. They are obviously the 3 go-tos, and these are definitely the highlights of all the money making methods in GT7. Number 1 is definitely a bit of a surprising pick. You probably all got something in mind, but with all that being said, let's jump into it and see what you've got in store. With all that being said, let's get straight into the methods and let's see what is up at, spot number 5. Well, you probably would have guessed this one if you've been around for a while. It is the Red Bull Junior method at the 700 PP Le Mans event. This one, it's basically been around for a while. Bit of a special place in my heart because it was the first ever commentary video I did, and it was basically about 4 months ago now that I covered this originally. It's never changed really since the day it's kind of came around, and it's basically a tried and true method. Very simple, very kind of cheap entry point, which is why even to this day it is so popular in the kind of money making scene of Gran Turismo. If you want to buy it for yourself, go over to the Gran Turismo dealer. It is the Red Bull Junior, Red Bull X 2014 Junior. It's 350k, nice and cheap, very, like I said, cheap entry point. And there's going to be no tuning needed for this. Buy yourself a set of intermediates and heavy wets just in case it rains. I believe it starts on a hard tire and you should be good to go. The way to kind of run this strategy is put the fuel mix at 6. You are not going for outright pace advantage. You're kind of limited anyway due to the 30-minute time, barrier you've got to basically do this event. So no matter what, you've got to do at least 30 minutes. The run that I got here was actually a dry run, so I don't know if they've updated Le Mans recently, but you seem to be able to get a lot more dry runs than you used to be able to. You was always pretty much guaranteed rain back in the day. However, recently I've been running quite a lot of Le Mans, for tuning guides and stuff, and I've been getting a lot more dry races. Basically, if it rains, you pit in. As soon as it rains, get an early call for tyres. At that point, it's usually up to you whether you want inters or heavy wets, and then basically you go for the rest of the race. You shouldn't have to basically chop and change. At that point, if it does rain, you're guaranteed a win quite easily because the AI are absolutely terrible. And basically, you wait at the finish line and then you go over pretty much before the countdown is, just about to go over. But if it's dry like this, the way it kind of works is with this car, it's absolutely amazing purely because you don't need to pit, you don't need to fuel up or change tires. You're good to go all the way until the end. And basically, when the AI is pitting and stuff, that's where you're going to kind of, inherit your lead and such. So it's a super simple method. There's no, tuning cars needed. It's basically a buy and go method. The way it kind of should be, I guess, sometimes. Basically a lot more of a simple entry point. When you're kind of tuning cars, it can get really kind of mixed up and confusing for, especially beginning players. So I'd recommend, if you're going to be like grinding money as a beginner, this should be pretty much your go-to. Around lap 2, the best way to do it is basically monitor the weather conditions and basically see what's going to happen with the rain, and is it even going to rain. As you can see here on my map, I actually have rain coming in, and basically at this point around lap 3, the midpoint, it's going to absolutely rain down. It's going to get to the point where it's near enough for inters. As you can see by the bottom left, that little bar that tells you what tyres you should be on. Each notch represents inters and heavy wets. However, it's going to pass so quickly, and we're basically going to get a dry track very, very early on in the race, meaning we don't actually have to do the pit stop. But here we go. As we make our way through the grid, you're going to see the AI are all going to dive into the pits now at the end of lap 3 onto lap 4. But we're going to use that superior fuel and tyre advantage that we've got to basically just inherit the lead and basically run away with it at that point. No need to kind of look back and, wonder what the AI is doing. Like all these methods, just, it's a throwing it on easy kind of way, and not having to kind of worry about the AI. So basically with the majority of these, you'll see once you've kind of inherited first place or took first place, you don't really have to, you know, worry about the AI at all. You won't be watching your back. They basically just do their own thing and you're left to basically grind your money in peace. It does really kind of I guess, you know, speed up the process and make it a little bit, you know, less, I know, like less of a handful, because, you know, sometimes you play games or try certain methods and it's really frustrating because you're stuck with the AI for a long time, where most of these methods you basically leave them in the dust. As you can see, lap 6, the timer is just counting down now, and you know, we're pretty much coming towards the end of this event. Like I said, I've given you the strategy. This is basically a dry strategy. You won't see this one very often, mostly because Le Mans loves a good downpour. But basically, I was basically monitoring the time that I had between the AI, and it just wasn't enough to, you know, park at the finish line. So if it is dry, you do actually have to do that extra lap. You'll end up doing 7 laps instead of 6. Also at that point, I kind of like to boost the engine up to fuel mix 1 to basically make the last lap a little bit faster and not as long. Obviously that's if you get a dry run. If you don't, you won't actually have to worry about that. You can just potter around in fuel mix 6 the whole time as we come across the last few corners, and then we're just basically going to jump over the finish line. But that is going to be the Red Bull money method, basically a 30-minute method for 825k. As you can see here, we did it in 31:30, but that is on a dry run, which always takes longer, just because you can't get the gap that you usually would if it rains, you know, to the AI. Fastest lap of 4:16.698, which was done on our last lap. But overall, them stats don't really mean much when it comes to Le Mans. But here's the payout. It's 825k in around about 30 minutes, and that is going to be our 5th place money method. So nice and easy to start with. In at position 4, and to me this was probably the hardest method to really, I guess, pick, because at 4th place you could have had many methods. You could have had, you know, the Mazda 787B or the Mazda LM55, I believe it's called. Both very good money makers, but I actually went with this. This is a Suzuki Pikes Peak, an ultra legendary car in the Gran Turismo franchise. Been around since, I believe, GT2. It's always been an overpowered monster, and it's the same in Gran Turismo 7. If you want to buy this car, you can buy it yourself for 1.7 million. So very cheap for actually the performance you get from this thing, and kind of like the cult status this car has, putting out nearly a whopping 1,000 brake horsepower. Kind of just, you know, how legendary this car is made me pick this for 4th place, because it is very, very quick. I did cover it on day 1, however I didn't go too much into detail with it. I may actually cover it again in the future. But here's a tune you're going to need. It just needs a little bit of, I guess, messing around with. You want the racing hard tyres, so you want those for both, and then you want the body height adjustment at 140, 140, 5 and 6, 40, 40, 50, 50, 4.00, 4.00, 0.5, 0.5, 0.10 and 0.20 inwards, 15, 15, 20 and 40, 30, 40. You don't need to touch any of that. You want minus 15 ballast position in 175 ballast. No need to change the output. You want 390 downforce at the front and 596 at the back. None of the rest needs touching. With all these tunes, feel free to pause at any moment. So this is how this one works. You put it at fuel mix 6. This makes the car extremely good on fuel compared to if you run it in, you know, fuel mix 1. In my guide, that's originally where I went wrong. I suggested kind of burning through the pack as quickly as possible, but it absolutely drinks fuel. The best and I guess more efficient way of doing this is actually on a 2-stop strategy. What you want to do, again, like I said, put it at fuel mix 6, work your way through the pack, nice and easy. You're going to see on lap 1 we're going to have a bit of a scruffier lap, but it's more than, you know, quick enough. Basically, lap 1, like I said, you charge through the AI. They're a little bit dumb, so just be very, very careful, because sometimes they'll basically either block you off, put you in a wall, or all that good stuff. I'm basically just kind of giving a brief overview with these methods, that being because I don't want to kind of go too much in detail, because I do actually have all of these methods on my channel. So if you want to kind of see the full method, basically jump over there and check them all out. It's kind of what I do on a daily basis at this point, is, you know, find different tunes to basically ease the money grind in Gran Turismo 7. So shameless plug, if you are enjoying this video or you want to make a ton of money in GT7, this is the place to come. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and all that good stuff. Turn the notifications on. It's massively appreciated. But, you know, enough with that. Let's not do that again till the end. I just kind of wanted to get it out there. You know, all the support is genuinely, you know, appreciated. So as you can see, we're coming around to the end of lap 1 and we're already, you know, sort of working our way up. We're also going to use that massive straight line speed advantage we've got, as well as the four-wheel drive we have on this car, to basically, you know, get ourselves up nicely up the grid and come across the line with a 147 to begin with. Like I said, a bit of a scruffy lap. At this point, lap 3, we're basically just going to take the lead and not have to worry about the AI. We're going to do this run as basically stretching the run out as long as possible and kind of using as much fuel as possible before we have to pit. We're not actually going to have to worry about swapping tyres. Some people say it's best to. Personally, you know, I don't really rate that kind of way of doing it. I'd rather just keep the same tyres on. I do find this car is actually rather good with the tyres, and as you can see at the end of lap 7, we're going to box in for our pit stop. Jumping around the Alfa Romeo there. I'm not going to actually change the tyres, however I am going to fill the car to full. Sometimes it will tell you not to. I find it best just to, you know, fill the car as high as possible, to basically get it to, you know, as close to the end, I guess, as possible. I don't actually know if it's possible to do it on a one stop. I don't actually think it is, unless you're really careful with fuel saving, but that will make you much slower. Then we've already nerfed this car to oblivion to be able to do this method, so you don't want to be going, you know, much slower. Really, it's not what this car's about. And basically we're going to keep it at fuel mix 6 and get well on our way again, onto lap 8 and onto our second longest stint. Around lap 13, this is where I'd recommend taking your second pit stop of the race, right in the dying minutes. It's completely up to you. If you feel tyre wear's a bit too much, feel free to chuck another set of tyres on. However, I found it more than controllable, and basically, as you can see here, it's actually going to tell me to just fill up a few notches. Now, the Gran Turismo fuel system is a little bit awkward. I wouldn't recommend, you know, filling up to what it says. I'd actually recommend going above that, and, you know, quite a bit above that, because it doesn't take into account what other fuel, I guess, modes you're going to be running. It's kind of weird how it you know, figures it all out. But at this point, you're going to go fuel mix 1 and basically run it to the end. As you can see, we've nearly used all the fuel up already within a couple of laps. So this is kind of why I said, you know, overfill, because it's always better than, you know, putting in what it says and basically running out of fuel and plodding along to the finish and probably, you know, losing your lead. But as you're going to see, that is 15 laps done in around about 25 minutes. So you can kind of get it down between, like, I believe 24 to 25. It's completely how you drive it. I would say that was more of a laid back run. We did a fastest lap of a 1:35.013, and like I said, a 25-minute overall run for 727,500. The reason that is fourth, because it's, you know, so simplistic and straightforward. Now, a lot of people probably would have assumed this method was first. However, we know Sardinia pays out a little bit less than the other two methods. However, you know, pure pace and simplicity, this car is very quick. This method is ultra fast, and it's definitely well worth looking into. It has a bit of a higher starting price, or entry point, whatever you want to call it, and a bit of a lower payout, but it is ultimately the fastest car in the Sardinia event, and it's actually going to be no more Sardinia after this method. So if you want to buy this car yourself, it is a Toyota GR010 Hybrid 2021, added in, I believe, update 1.15, and it is 3 million. And since the day this hit the game and the Tomahawk was patched, this became a lot of people's go-to money grinding method, and I can see why. It is really easy to drive, really easy to get set up, and I don't really have any complaints in the way this method can be run. So here's a setup you will need. I have put racing hards on. That is the only tire you're going to need, and then basically for the rest of the setup you need a 90, 87, a 6 and a 9, a 30 and a 30, 40, 40, 3.50 and 4.20, 3.0, 2.5, 0.10 outwards and 0.05 outwards. You need initial torque 5, 5, 40, 40, 5 and 5. None of this needs changing, but you want your power restrictor at 70, output 88, no ballast needed, 700 downforce and 1012 downforce at the rear. None of this needs changing. Pause at any moment, like I always say. So on to the strategy. How this works is you put it usually at fuel mix 2 if you're confident enough, but I recommend to begin with put it at fuel mix 3 and basically short shift. As soon as you see the revs go up, you are going to shift this car up a gear. Stay in as high gears as you can, use a lot of trail braking so you've got enough boost to basically carry yourself around the whole race. It is possible to do, and it may take a couple of runs. However, once you've done it a few times, this is 100% the easiest money method. It might not be the outright quickest for sort of credits in an hour. However, it is very fast and very, very easy. Again, it's just a case of being aware of your revs, not using too much fuel, and obviously trying to use a bit of trial braking to keep that hybrid system charged up enough, just enough to kind of keep you through all of the 15 laps. To begin with, you basically work your way through the AI. Again, these are on easy. It kind of gets them out of the way, and you don't have to worry about them until the later stage of the race, when you're inevitably going to lap them all pretty much twice. However, most of them overtakes will be done when the AI pits in. You will probably have I'd say about half the cars to overtake when you're going around again and lapping them. And as you can see, very, very controllable, very grippy. This is essentially a zero stop strategy. You will not have to pit in, you will not have to change your tires or fuel or any of that good stuff. You just basically go in from start to finish, no kind of interruptions, and it's going to basically make this race an absolute breeze and basically earn you a lot of money as we go across the line with a 141.490. Around lap 2, you're going to inherit the lead or basically take it. As you can see, we're just short shifting around. We're up on the back of the Dodge Viper, and pretty soon we're going to use that, basically, I guess, more, better cornering speed and straightaway speed to basically work our way through and basically never look back at this point. They're all going to have to pit and all that good stuff. You can see we're averaging about a 136 to 137. It is possible to get as fast as a 133 when you're in fuel mix 2. I usually go into fuel mix 2 like I've done here around about the halfway stage of the race, about lap 6 to 7. This is because you should have enough fuel saved to be able to basically run the same strategy on fuel mix 2. Like I said, you can do it from start to finish at fuel mix 2, but it is a little bit more, on edge, and it can go very, very wrong. On the last few laps, I boosted it up to full power. The hybrid system is almost drained. The tyre wear is about halfway, and we are making our way across the finish. This method, it can be done between 23 and 24 minutes. Once you get comfortable with it, it is very, very easy. And as you're going to see here, overall we did a 24:33.810 in a more laid back run and a fastest lap of 1:36. So not too bad at all. So that is going to be Sardinia done and out the way. Another bit of a shocker here, this is the Alpine method. Now, this is a very well-known glitched setup. Very, very fast in a straight line, very grippy, This car will set you back 330k when it lands in a Legend dealer, and it takes place at Tokyo. So Tokyo is going to round up the first two positions. A lot of people probably thought this would have been first, but I've actually chose, I guess, a bit of a controversial pick, which you will see here at the end. Just some things to note with this setup: make sure you run the standard 15-inch wheels, or else it really does mess up the PP and you cannot get it down to what you need, or basically make this setup that we're going to use. Here's how you run it. You run racing softs on both. Now that might sound really weird and like they won't last, but this car is surprisingly good on those soft tires. They don't wear basically wear off as quick as you might actually think. So that is a reason to basically choose the softs over any others, and it's actually the softs that you need to be able to get this to basically all click in place. The best way to do it is also just copy the livery I've got there. Now for the full rest of the setup: 115 and 120, 5, and also 5 at the rear. Compression for the dampening ratio is going to be 30 at the front and also 30 at the back. Expansion is 40 and 40. Natural frequency is 4.0 and 4.0. Negative camber angle 1.5, 2.0. Toe angle 0.10 outwards and 0.30 inwards. Initial torque is 5, 29 and 5. None of this needs touching. However, you want fully customizable racing transmission. Set that at 330, and that makes it very good in a straight line. There's your individual gears. Copy those. Just pause at any moment, like I said. But just make sure those match up exactly. Power restrictor you don't need to do. Make sure you got the fully customizable ECU, and just obviously keep that at 100. Downforce is 150 at the front, and at the back is 150. Medium RPM turbo is needed, as well as a racing intercooler. So just make sure you have that on. That is the only kind of additional parts you need there. However, the more perma mods, well, you're going to see none. Yeah, you don't need any. So here's the settings I actually recommend for this. Set your traction at 3. Have a manual gearbox. Set your braking area on because it's not the best on brakes. And have your ASM on and your counter steering assistance at weak. As soon as you start, set it to fuel mix free. This is basically all you need to do at the beginning. And the way to do this, or do it best should I say, is break this race up into 3 parts. You have survival of the first few laps. Then you basically go into your comfort zone and kind of stretch out your run, and then basically it's a sprint to the finish. Straight line speed, as you can see, this car is going to eat up the rest of the field in no time. Before you know it, you're in the top half of the grid. Just be careful on that first corner. It is absolutely notorious for slamming into and getting a penalty. Just be careful with the throttle control. This car is a bit of a menace for getting its rear end out. That is why I've recommended, while it's wet, is to basically keep those assists on, at least 3. I'd recommend 3 at the most and 3 at the least. For me, it's like the perfect bit to run while you are going through, I'd say, the first lap, I guess 1 to 4. I sort of class those as the survival stage. Most people will probably say lap 1 is just purely survival, but I'd say it's still wet enough to be a bit more on the cautious side up until about lap 4. At that point, it just gets drier and drier, and it's pretty much dry enough to run. No assists. That is my preferred way. Some of you may actually use assists all the time, but trust me, when you've got the assists off and a manual transmission, it is much better to kind of use. You get more of a feel for the car, more control, and it does allow you to basically speed up the process. But I know a lot of people are not a fan of turning the assists off too much, or maybe just not confident enough. Each to their own. But like I said, we are still in survival stage for lap 1, and as you can see, we are sticking with the front half of the grid very much close onto the rear. As soon as we get on that straight, we are pretty much going to break away. Brake insanely early for these corners. Like I said, the brakes on this car are not the best. It's a very old machine, However, as soon as you open it up on the back straight, it's that long and that fast in this car that you will pretty much make the majority of your time up there. I would also recommend short shifting wherever you can, because it allows you to keep some of the grip and basically, you know, keeps the car, I guess, more in check and more in line. As we power up the straight, we're going to keep it at fuel mix free. But you're going to see just how quick this thing is, even in that mode. When it comes to being in a straight line, we're going to hit upwards of 200 miles per hour in no time, and before we know it, we're just breaking down for that first corner again. Lap 5 here, the track is pretty much dried out. We don't need to worry about surviving. At this point, we've already taken the lead, and we're basically just looking to extend it, bring them lap times down, and make the most before we do our one and only pit stop of this race. As you can see, the way to kind of run it is put power mix 1 on and basically swap and swap between 3 and 1 at this point of the race. This is because it allows you to use that, you know, more, I guess, what would I say, powerful top speed on the faster sections, and then when it's in a more, I guess, twisty turny section, tone it down, and you know, it allows you to kind of keep the grip when you're powering out of corners. But you can see how I'm running it here, so just kind of use that as a reference on how to run this event. Fuel shouldn't really be much of an issue. Lap 7 is actually when we're going to take our first pit stop. You can actually do it on lap 6. It's completely how, you know, up to you how long you feel these tyres can go. Personally, I like to sort of overdo it because it, you know, takes a bit more pressure off, and I've got a bit more time to just sprint to the finish in the second half of the event. But as you can see, one and only pit stop. Put another set of soft tyres on because, you know, they are very quick. However, they degrade a lot quicker than any other tyres. But still, to get to lap 7 on these is pretty impressive. It will say kind of fill up to the notch, but again, ignore that. I personally like to, you know, fill the car up quite a bit more than that. It just gives me, you know, a more freedom, I guess, with the fuel, and allows me to basically, you know, do a sprint, which is what this third and final stint is all about, is basically going as fast as you can and really nailing those lap times. So as you're going to see, we've banged it in fuel mix 1 and we are basically on our way. At lap 10, you can see fuel is still going good, tyre wear still going good, and we have a fastest lap of 2:02.097. It is very much possible to get these lap times to under a 2 minute, so not too difficult in that sense. And on the final lap, we're just coming around. Tyre wear is starting to kick in a little bit more now, but plenty of fuel left. We have a fastest lap of 2 minutes at this point, and we are basically just going to sprint our way all the way to the finish in around 25 minutes. So that extra money coming in clutch for Tokyo, for around about the same time as Sardinia. Tokyo should really take a bit more, but these glitch setups are absolutely awesome for them. As you can see, overall we did a time of 25:52.899 with a fastest lap of 2 minutes .219. This and first place are very kind of swip and swap. However, I've chosen first place just for how insane and fast that car is. As you can see, in those 25 minutes, we've got 825k, and we're also going to get a nice 6-star roulette ticket. Now, this one's a bit crazy. I uploaded this one yesterday, and for me, this is the fastest money-making method in the game. It's very easy to get into the 24 minutes with this car. You are going to run it at Tokyo. It's not really been covered as much as I kind of feel it should have been. However, it's very reminiscent of the 600 pp Tomahawk methods we were all running back in the day. Now, it's very, very specific how you need to run this, so I will try my best to give a brief summary. However, the full guide is up on the channel, so feel free to go and watch that. This is obviously the Chevy Corvette C7 ZR1 2019, coming in for a very, very cheap price of 134k, and you're going to make that back in no time. Yes, you will need to use upgrades and stuff, but it's still a very cheap method that you aren't going to have to kind of overthink about spending money, because trust me, you will earn it back very, very quickly. Here are the aero pots you need. You need type A. Make sure you have that on because it's very much needed. At the rear, again, type A. You need those aero pots on. I've also left the rear wing to standard. Do not change that. Also, when it comes to wheels, I've left them standard. Do not put a livery on this car either, because that may give you different wheels and different width on the tyres. Keep it all pretty standard to begin with. However, when the tuning comes in, it's a little bit crazy. From sports, you need weight reduction stage 1. Ensure you've got that on. You also want to make sure you've got sports mediums. However, the car does start on those. From club sports, you need weight reduction stage 2. That is all you're going to need. Semi-racing, racing crankshaft, fully customizable computer, and make sure you also have a fully customizable LSD, as well as weight reduction stage 3. From racing, engine balance tuning, polished ports, supercharger, high-end torque, racing intercooler, racing air filter, racing silencer, racing exhaust manifold, racing brake pads, brake balance controller, fully customizable suspension, racing clutch and flywheel, fully customizable racing transmission, weight reduction stage 4, and from extreme you need carbon ceramic brake kit and steering angle adapter. Ensure you have all those parts on. So here's a tune for it. You need the sports mediums on both. They are very specific. Do not mess this up. You need the fully customizable suspension. You need a body height of 95, and then at the rear you need 103. On anti-roll bar, you're going to need 4 at the front and 4 at the rear. At the front for ratio compression, 35 and 35. Expansion, 45 and 45. Frequency, 3.50 and 3.70 at the rear. Then next, it's negative camber angle, 0.5, 1.5. Toe angle, this is crucial, 0, and outwards, 0.99. Be very specific on that one. It is to the left, not the right. Make sure you got the fully customizable LSD. You want 10, 22, 15, and then on the transmission, you want fully customizable racing transmission. Set it to 360. You want your output at 100, and make sure you've got the fully customizable ECU on. Downforce 200 at the front, 350 at the rear. Then you want racing intercooler, supercharger high end, make sure you've got that set. Racing air cleaner, racing silencer, racing exhaust manifold, carbon brakes, racing brake pads, brake controller, and then make sure you have these, however I'll cover those in a minute. Steering angle adapter, racing clutch and flywheel. Now, perma mods. Here we go. Engine balance tuning, polished ports, racing crankshaft, weight reduction stage 1, 2, 3 and 4. That is your tune. It's very specific though. So these are the, kind of settings I recommend. -2 on the controller steering sensitivity. It's a very, very weird car to drive. Nothing else drives as nuts as this car in the game, so just make sure you've got that to -2. Assist, manual transmission for me, but make sure you've got the traction on 5. Put the braking area on, because that braking area is very awkward for this car, so just be careful. ASM on. Counter steering assistance, make sure you've got that too strong. Now let's get into the actual race. So fuel mix 6, and you're basically going to use that insane power to basically take the lead nice and early on, and you're going to see straight away we're going to hit absolutely crazy top speeds, even faster than the Alpine, which I thought was insanely quick. However, I have not seen a car go this fast since the days of the 600 pp Tomahawk, and it's definitely as crazy as those cars were back in the day. That is why I would say this is the fastest method. I've seen people almost in the 23s with this method around Tokyo, which again is getting more towards the Tomahawk strategy than anything else. Even the Alpine cannot really touch those, I guess, times, but this thing sure can. It just may take a few runs of this method. Pretty quickly we're up on the rear end of first, and we're going to try and basically take the lead. nice and early on, as it's a little bit slippy and slidey. However, those assists and the awkward handling of this car should be kind of keeping you on track, weirdly enough. It always feels like it's going to slide out, however it never seems to actually break out too much. I would actually recommend keeping those assists on all the way through the race. Obviously we're running at lean fuel mode, so the rear tyres aren't going to spin up as much as the, I guess, kind of would. This car is putting out over 1,000 brake horsepower, so it is insanely powerful and insanely quick. And yes, we've kind of reduced the power by setting it to 6. However, you will be thankful when it comes to driving this thing around in the rain. However, it is not too bad. It does take a couple of runs, but when you kind of nail it, this thing is absolutely crazy. As soon as we get in a straight line, you are basically going to pull away from anything and everything. That, 3/10 gap is now all the way up to nearly a second by the time we get down to the corner. Just brake early and kind of get a feel for the car in the, I guess, survival stage of Tokyo. We'll kind of see what we're going to do later on in the method. It's actually rather easy, I guess, with having to just stick it in one fuel mix and not worry about the rest. It does kind of make it a lot more accessible and less kind of, I guess, strategic in the sense while you're driving. However, you still need to kind of drive with at least a little bit of care and not to, I guess, overdo it. As we go across the line in a 225 straight away, and here's the insane top speed as we're already at 220, and it's just going to keep on climbing as the surface levels out. So this is why this one is so quick, as we hit upwards of 230 miles an hour while in lean fuel mode. So yeah, definitely an absolutely wild machine. On lap 7, we're pottering around with a fastest lap of 2:02.703, and it's very consistent when it comes to your lap times. You will find that you will pretty much always average a 2:03 to a 2:02 when you're kind of running fuel mix 6. However, after another pit stop, we're not going to have to be as cautious. There's a bit more leeway in how we can kind of run the rest of the race. So as we hit up the straight for one last time before we dip into the pits, we're basically just going to use that insane acceleration in pretty much dry enough conditions at this point. Very, much more controllable. We're going to have about 0.3 laps of fuel left. The best thing to do is put another set of tyres on, because this thing likes to use tyres a lot more than the Alpine does. I'd say the Alpine is quite friendly with its tyres. This one you definitely want to change them, and the little diamond is going to tell you to fill up to 70%. Just completely ignore that. It will basically lie to you all the time. Do not have trust in that diamond. I would 100% recommend just filling the car to full and having a lot more, I guess, freedom in the fuel modes you can use. So away we go, and we are basically just going to run the rest of the race. Obviously at this point we're on lap 8 out of 12. We're more than halfway through, so we can ultimately burn off a bit more fuel towards the end of this run. So the last few corners on the last lap, tyre wear again starting to kick in, but no need to worry, we're now down in the 2:01.224. You can get sub 2-minute lap times in this car, no problem. It's just a case of confidence. And when I did this run, which obviously I shown yesterday in full, I wasn't as confident in this car, but trust me, it is insanely fast as we're about to power up and over the line for a final time. First place, the fastest money method currently in Gran Turismo 7. It's a very close one, but for me, this is the fastest car just because of how crazy it is and how more towards the 600 pp Tomahawks that we ran back in the day. As you can see, first place, no problem, absolute breeze as we finally finish up all 5 methods. This one was a 25:39.124 with a fastest lap of 2:01.224. Very consistent lap times compared to the Alpine, and definitely faster straight out of the gate. As you can see, the AI just stood no chance even with a pit stop, and that is finally going to be the final money method, as again we take 825k in around about 24 to 25 minutes. So that's it. They are the 5 fastest money making glitches and methods currently available to use in Gran Turismo 7. I kind of wanted to round up some of the fastest. Obviously it changes over time. If you go on the fastest of all time, it would easily be the 600 pp Tomahawk, and sadly they're not as crazy as they used to be when I was running them methods. However, that Corvette feels very reminiscent of that Tomahawk, very fast in a straight line, very kind of crazy through the corners, but once you start nailing those runs, it is easily the fastest method. The Alpine also very close. Tokyo is still king of the money grind. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for the support recently. This is just more an overview of the fastest methods. The full guides are on the channel. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers guys. Peace.